With that, we welcome you into episode number 89 of Unfiltered. You can jump on board the Unfiltered Revolution at Casey Stern, get on Twitter, jump in the bio, get on the YouTube channel, and follow all the interviews and episodes and videos, including me melting down last night after a Mets win. But we're going to stay on the other side of New York for now as I welcome in my guest today and talk about hopefully a place both the Mets and Yankees want to go, and that's to the World Series, perhaps against each other, and talk about my buddy Tyler Kepner from the New York Times and the author of his book coming out October 11th, The Grandest Stage. You can get over at Tyler Kepner, get all the info on how to pre-order from Doubleday Books. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good, Casey. Good to talk to you, man. How you been?
I've been good. I've been good. So let me obviously start with Judge. How do you try covering the game as long as you have, put into context the kind of year that he's put together? Not just the home runs, but in total.
Well, I think our friend Aaron Boone always mentions the context of how much better Judge is than every other hitter this year. How many more home runs? I mean, it's not like he has anybody close to him chasing him in this. There is nobody within 20 home runs of him. Maybe Schwarber might be within 19, but it's really far and away better than anybody else. So that part of it is interesting. And also just, the fact that, we have to apply context to everything, right? I mean, the PED era was what it was. They weren't checking and guys were getting their edge. But in all these years since we've had testing for 20 years now, and nobody has done this. And Roger Maris did it in the first season of a 162 game schedule, and nobody did it again until 98. So it is a really significant number, and the fact that it's still a Yankee, that the only three AL players that do this are Yankees, the 60 home runs. That's kind of cool. That's not a New York bias thing. That's just a fact, and it's neat that it's happening right in front of us.
To me, the most impressive part of this has been the fact that he has hit the way he has. Look, if he's hitting 240 and his OBP is 320, I still don't care. It's 61 homers, right? So it's amazing. But the fact that he's battling for a triple crown, the fact that he's not, Tyler, in a typical Yankee lineup where, especially when Rizzo was down and Stanton coming back from an injury, where, he's got 6-7 other guys and 3 of them are future Hall of Famers, like some of these Yankees teams have been. What does it say about Judge as the complete player, the fact that he's been the kind of hitter that he's been, in addition to obviously the home runs at the forefront of that?
Right. That's a great point because, there are plenty of power hitters, and there have been down through the years who did not hit for a high average. That continues today. But, no offense to some of them. We didn't see Dave Kingman or Adam Dunn approach this kind of record despite all their power. It's a guy who is, you're right, like in position to win the Triple Crown, and that means a batting title, and that means the kind of disciplined at bats that we've seen since he got to 60. Sure, it took a week, a week and a day, but he was very disciplined in those at bats. He got a lot of deep counts, so he had some pitches to hit. It wasn't like they were totally pitching around him, but he wasn't going to chase on a full count. I mean, he even sitting on 60, he was going to do the right thing for the team and get on base and not go outside of his zone. So he does strike out a lot. We know that. But those at-bats that he took between 60 and 61, I think show you where his priorities are and show you what a mature, skilled hitter, batting eye he has and what he's become.
When you look at what he's done, part of this that is unfortunate, but is the context that we all live in, especially when, Roger Maris Jr. is coming out yesterday and saying, hey, look, I think it's the home run record. And look, and that's, obviously a tribute to his father and his accomplishments, and also a knock on some of those other things that we know that Barry Bonds and others were involved in. What's your take on people who say, hey, look, this is the real home run record?
Well, certainly, first off, I think Roger Maris Jr., of all people in the world, is entitled to that opinion.
Oh, of course.
more than anybody else walking the planet, Roger Maris Jr. can feel that way. But I mean, look, it's just a slippery slope, man. I mean, what are we supposed to do if we say that Bonds' record is invalid and then McGuire and Sosa is invalid? Then do we say all the World Series titles in that time are invalid because some guys were on steroids, but they were also on steroids in the other team. But what about home runs he hit off steroid pitchers? It's just, we can't invalidate what we saw. It's not like the Olympics where it's a one-on-one competition sometimes and they'll take stuff away. And I don't even really like that anyway. Like, hey, if you want to say they got away with it, fine, but there was no testing in that era and there was no penalties to face. So were they cheating? Yes, because they wouldn't have told you what they were doing, but it was understandable. The old Chris Rock line. So baseball did, the way I look at it is baseball didn't care enough. The union didn't care enough to police itself then. So the game is what it was. And we just have to apply context, right? We have to apply context to Babe Ruth, that he played in a segregated league. We have to apply context to the Roger Maris's era when everyone, when greenies were readily available. No one was testing for that stuff. We just have to, we have to look context. Hank Aaron played in a home, a homer, the launching pad in Atlanta. So it's just, Ted Williams spent 5 years in the military when he could have maybe had 700 homers. So it's all just context, and we don't need to be afraid of context. We just need to understand what it was. And Barry Bonds has the record.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think that, look, it's, Barry Bonds is, and I don't know where you're sitting on this, he's the greatest player of my lifetime. I'm in my 40s. I mean, he's, it is what it is. I mean, we all know kind of what happened, but we can't eliminate the idea of Barry Bonds because of it, as much as people might want to. I want to ask you one more on Judge and then talk about the book. And as we head into the postseason, perfect timing of it, obviously. I'm sure not a accident that it's coming out in October. It's kind of the month for that sort of thing. But I want to ask you just this on Judge, being around this team for so many years and around New York and getting the pulse of it. I know things have changed with George gone, right? The Steinbrenner name is still there, but that we're not putting out articles in the paper saying the team sucks and we're apologizing to the fans. We don't feel that need to go spend on everybody. Brian Cashman's been able to, buffer and be able to make decisions where we've seen guys leave. That all being said, is this as must sign as you've seen during really any Yankee time period, because of thinking about kind of where Judge sits right now, Tyler, regardless of George being here or not? Isn't this a whatever top dollar he gets offered, I got to give more than that and got to keep him kind of a thing now for the Yankees at this point?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, there's been nothing like this that I can remember as far as the Yankees in terms of who has the leverage, right? Like, I mean, any way you want to look at it, Aaron Judge has all the leverage. I mean, the only thing he doesn't have, I guess, is age, because he's already 30. But beyond that, I mean, what more did he have to do? Like, they made him a very nice offer. They offered him a fortune, but Aaron Judge said, you know what? I think I'm better than that. And I want to see what my value is. And players have earned that right, as a hard-earned right that major league players have. And he went out and proved it beyond what anybody could have imagined. He's going to win. He will, he may win the Triple Crown. Even if he doesn't, he's so close. 61 homers plus. As you say, an all-around player playing center field for a lot of this year. He basically can name his price. Everybody knows how much the Yankees are worth as an organization. And they have always founded their business model on stars. That's why, it was okay to let Robbie Cano go. First of all, it made business sense, but also just like he wasn't really, as great as player as he wasn't really the drawing card. Aaron Judge is a drawing card. The Yankees business model, what they charge, where they are, New York City, with the Mets across town, they depend on star attractions. And Aaron Judge is that more than anybody else, except maybe Ohtani. They got to bring him back, and he can basically name his price.
Yeah, at this point, I could really not see any way, and I'm sure he would like to be there and want to be there, but he has become such a heroic figure in New York, regardless of what really happens in the postseason. Seems like a must. We talk about heroic figures. One of the great things about October is, and it is a real thing, we would say the heroes of October, or how many names have not been big names that become bigger names, and how many moments you don't expect become now the expected because of all the craziness. Putting together this book, The Grandest Stage, and again, get at Tyler Kepner for all the information on how to pre-order the book, which will be out October 11th. What made you first of all, choose this as a topic? Because it's a daunting topic. The World Series is such a wide open, vast array of things to discuss. When you thought about what you wanted to do for this book, why this topic, first of all?
Well, my first book was all about the history of pitching, and that was probably even more broad. I could narrow this down at least to a specific event every year except for two since 1903.
Right.
So that was, it could be a little narrower, but when you're comparing it to the history of pitching, so that part of it wasn't daunting. I really just wanted to do something that I really, really love and am sort of naturally interested in. And I've always been just super locked in ever since I was 8 years old. And I went to the '83 World Series with my mom and my dad, and the Phillies lost the games I went to, but it was still an extremely memorable, happy childhood experience that I reflect on all the time. And that was back when they played at games in the afternoon, and it was my guys and all that. So it's always stuck with me. And now, the opportunity we have to talk to these people, you see them in the course of the day. You might be like, oh, hey, the Yankees are playing the Astros. There's Jeff Blum in the Astros broadcast booth. He had one at bat in the World Series and hit a game-winning home run against the Astros, like for the White Sox. And now he's at a statue outside the White Sox stadium. So talk to him about that moment and the story. So it was more than just, really, it wasn't so much trying to track down Bill Mazeroski and Joe Carter for the 10,000th interview they've done on this. It was trying to look in many cases at the other sides of the story. We all know Kirk Gibson hit the home run. Well, there were bases empty and 2 outs, and Dennis Eckersley, the greatest control pitcher of his era, walks Mike Davis, who hit 196 that year. If he doesn't walk Mike Davis, Kirk Gibson never gets the plate. So I talked to Mike Davis and Eck about that at bat, which set up the Gibson at bat, that sort of thing. So
I love that, by the way. That's
yeah,
fantastic.
thanks. So I feel like it's a lot. That's a chapter where it's like, here's what you know, and here's what you might not know. Like Bill Mazeroski hit a home run to win the World Series. You might not know that a backup catcher named Hal Smith hit a home run that statistically was much, much more important because it took the Pirates from losing to winning in the bottom of the 8th. They blew the lead in the top of the 9th, but they don't even get there without this guy Hal Smith, who I was lucky enough to talk to like 2 months before he died. So that was something special too, was able to get guys, talk to Eddie Robinson, who was 99 years old when I talked to him, and he has since died, but he played for the 48 Indians, their last championship team. He played for the 55 Yankees and saw Sandy Amoros go into the corner and save Game 7 for Johnny Padres. So to be able to get some of those recollections, talking to Roger Angel about being in the stands in 1941 when Mickey Owen let the ball get past him to extend that game and lead the Yankees to a win. So that was really great, gratifying. And of course, people who are still here like Carl Erskine and Bobby Richardson, and they contribute as well.
How much does it surprise you when you put together a book like this and have conversations in general with guys who are thinking about those at-bats that many years prior, at just how well they seem to recount and remember it like it was? Baseball players are weird that way anyway. I mean, it is strange for all of us who have talked to them. People don't realize, they remember things. I can't, like 9 years, birthdays or like our kids being born and things like that. But what was it like watching them kind of relive and listening to them relive it as if it was so much sooner to now, Tyler, than 40, 50 years ago?
Yeah, that's a real treat to be able to do that. To talk to Raleigh Fingers about what it was like 50 years ago to strike out Johnny Bench on a fake intentional walk in the World Series. What he was thinking when they went out to the mound and that sort of thing. And they have tremendous recall. You especially events like this, you find sometimes that they'll talk about regular season stuff and you'll go back and the details won't quite match up, but for something as indelible as the World Series, the details are usually still at the forefront, and they never really leave. So that, because a lot of these guys, it's their one chance to make a mark. They just get lucky in the sense that they have a very brief career, but they're in the right place at the right time, and then they take advantage of it. I talked to John Stuper, who was for many years the coach at Yale, and he pitched an elimination game against a Hall of Famer, Don Sutton, for the '82 Cardinals in his rookie year. And he went the distance, and it was rain, multiple rain delays. I think 2.5 hours of rain delays, and he pitched the whole game because he said he just wanted Whitey Herzog to have every bullpen arm available for Game 7. And his career didn't last very long, and people think, maybe he shouldn't have gone out there after the rain delay when he's a rookie and pitched a complete game in a 13-1 game. But he says, I don't regret it at all. I was doing it for the team. I got a ring. I'd do it all over again. And that sort of thing is pretty cool, because those guys, they are remembered. They didn't make the money, and they didn't put up the career numbers that a lot of other guys did, but they did something that Don Sutton, for example, never did. Don Sutton was one of the all-time greats, never won a World Series, and John Stuper beat him in an elimination game. Pretty cool.
It's amazing because, I wonder, obviously you do a lot of research when you're pinpointing stories you want to learn more about. But one of the great things I imagine putting together books like this is how much you learn that you didn't even know, and how many stories you're kind of finding out as you go from behind the scenes. Are there one or two that come to mind from the book? Were there things that you really didn't have any idea had either transpired or were as deep of a story where you kind of found yourself kind of locked into learning about something even more than your research had told you before you came to a conversation?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, some of it was just the historical stuff, right? Like, I mean, we know the basics. Like, everybody knows the Black Sox through the World Series. It is some form or another, whether it was one game or some combination of players. There was obviously something shady going on, and they were throwing at least one game and probably more games. But what I didn't really realize was that the team they were playing was better, and the 1919 Reds don't get much attention or notoriety. They didn't have any like a shoeless Joe Jackson type superstars. They had Ed Roush, who's in the Hall of Fame, but basically they were this team that Christy Mathewson had put together. He had been there. He had finished his career with one game with the Reds, and then kind of pieced together this really great team that was better than any of the big Red Machine teams. If you go by winning percentage, like the 1919 Reds were primed to win that World Series. The White Sox hated each other anyway, and they had lost a Hall of Fame pitcher, Red Faber, who wasn't available in that World Series. So, the Reds of 1919 were like a much, much better team than I realized, because I just sort of thought they were the team that the White Sox, threw the World Series to. But there was a lot more to it than that, and so stuff like that from the deep historical annals were really fun, and then obviously the more recent stuff, like that we've all seen on TV. It's still really powerful to be able to talk to Lance Berkman about what it's like to be up at the plate with 2 outs and 2 strikes in the World Series, and what's going through his mind and how he prepared for that, because once Albert Pujols hit 3 home runs, he knew they were never going to pitch to Albert the rest of the series, and Matt Holliday had gotten hurt. So, Berkman just saw this thing way in advance. Like, I'm going to get a chance here because they're not going to pitch to that guy. And now Holliday's, so, and Tony switched the lineup around. So he envisioned this at bat 3-4 games before it even happened. And he was able to come through with the hit off Scott Feldman. So, Tony Womack with a big hit in 01 against Rivera, talking to him about being up in that moment where you can win the World Series with one swing or lose it with one swing with a double play or something. So, just so many of those really on every page.
Let me wrap here this way. And again, the book, The Grandest Stage, and get over and pre-order it now, out October 11th. So I've got to put you on the spot here. If you had a chapter in the book that was not written, that was going to be about the 22 World Series, who's in it?
I mean, you can go chalk and go Dodgers, Astros, and then we get the rematch. But there's not really not a lot of players left from that. I mean, there's still a handful of big names, Bregman and Altuve and Correa, or not Correa.
Oh, sure. I mean, you've got yes.
But but not a ton. But still, that would really resonate. I mean, that would be ugly having to revisit all that stuff. I'm sure Clayton Kershaw would love it. But but it would be a storyline for sure. But that's chalk, man. That's not fun. I mean, let's we could have another Subway series, man. It's been 22 years. I'm not a New Yorker, but I have worked at the New York Times for 23 seasons now. So my first year there was the Subway series, man. It'd be pretty cool to get another one, with a new set of personalities and history. So I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be, but let's just have some fun with it and say Subway series. 1956 was the last one, 2000. 2022. 22 years is a long time if you think about it. So let's do that again.
I'll take that. And the Baja Men won't be singing "Who Let the Dogs Out" before Derek Jeter hits a home run before I sit down before Game 3. Speaking of World Series stories, against Bobby Jones. Game four against Bobby Jones.
First pitch changeup.
Yeah. I literally had a hot dog in my hand and a beer. I had not sat down yet in the seat. I was like, oh, well, this is typical. Tyler, appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm looking forward to reading the book. Everybody get out there, get the Grandest Stage, Doubleday Books, get at Tyler Kepner on Twitter for all the information. I had a pre-order out October 11th. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Casey. Really appreciate it.